Really quick, everybody, this entire video will be timestamped, so if you don't want to watch whole thing and just get straight into a different fight, please check the pinned comment or check the little red bar right down below you. Again, this entire video will be timestamped, and I'd appreciate you guys watching whatever part that you liked. And if you're sticking around, hello everybody, and welcome back to another video. If you are new here, my name is Kyle. I'm your guy with too many YouTube channels, and welcome back to a full card breakdown and prediction video this week for Vera versus Sandhagen. Can't wait for it. I won't say any more. Let's get into each fight. And again, timestamps are there if you need them. Starting off with the first fight, Tamires, Vidal versus Hailey, Cowan. Now, Hailey was supposed to fight a couple weeks ago. I don't remember what exactly happened to her, but she fell ill or something along the lines of that. She got pulled off the card, so that's something to take into consideration. But I did pick against her last time, and I'm going to continue to pick against her. I'm just not convinced of her yet. I haven't seen enough of her where it's like, hey, you know what? I think this chick can really be something, even though a lot of people seem to be actually picking her. Vidal, though, I feel like is going to be bigger, stronger, and have a relentless takedown pressure, and Hailey will just kind of get smothered by it. But again, anything can happen in women's MMA, but I'm going with Vidal in this fight. Moving on to the next fight, Vinicius Salvador versus Victor Altamirano. Now, guys, this may be fight of the night. I'm very excited for this one. I am going to go with Victor to win this fight because I believe he will just be way more active, and he is so precise. The odds are, it's tough because Vinicius could win this fight, but I don't think that Victor will have a problem because he just does very well when the takedown threat isn't there, and I don't think the takedown threat will be there. Even if he does get taken down, he's gotten up okay, but still, that's really the only worry I have for Victor is if he's fighting somebody who wants to take him down. I think this will be a stand-up fight. I think Victor will pick him apart, and don't get me wrong, both guys are really good strikers, and both guys could win. I'm kind of like 70-30 on this one. I got Victor Altamirano to win this fight, but Salvador is also a very good opponent. So that's why I'm at 70-30 with this one. Moving on to the next fight, Manuel Torres versus Trey, Ogden. I'm going to go with Manuel Torres in this one because I was not overly impressed in Trey's last fight. Yes, he got the win, but of course his game plan is to always take people down, right? And he looks good once he gets on the ground, but he got stuffed probably 10 times. Don't fact check me on that one because I'm just like, he got stuffed a lot. That's the point. And Manuel Torres, he's looked really good so far, and his striking is, I don't want to say miles ahead, but I think he's just way better in striking, and I think he has the defense to keep Trey off him, and I think he'll have the length to keep him on the outside. You can see the reach difference isn't too bad, but still, Torres really uses that reach, and that's what I think he's going to do in this fight. I can't pick with Trey Ogden. He's a great fighter, don't get me wrong, but I don't think he's going to be able to get this fight to the ground. I think he's going to be stuck on the outside and get picked apart, possibly losing by decision in this fight. I got Torres. Moving on to the next fight, another potential contender for fight of the night, Vergara versus Daniel da Silva. So, both guys are coming off a little bit of a rough go in their careers so far. So, Vera lost 2 of his last 3, while Daniel da Silva lost 3 of his last 3, and I gotta say, he hasn't looked horrible in these fights. It's just, Da Silva's the type of fighter to just throw himself in there. He is really good offensively, but he's lacking in his defense, if that makes sense. He's going to go in there, he's going to throw himself in there, but if he gets clipped, that's a problem. And I understand it's a problem for everybody. When Daniel da Silva gets clipped, it doesn't look good, and we've seen him lose. Vergara, there. He has looked good in his last couple fights. Okay, you know what? He's had a little bit of hiccups, but still, he's looked pretty good. I like his pressure style. He's going to meet Daniel da Silva in the middle of the octagon here, and they're going to throw down, and we know that Silva is going to be a little bit less cautious, and I think Vergara is the type of guy who would be able to catch him. Silva wants this fight on the ground, but the problem is he lacks the takedown ability to get it to the ground, so he needs to find himself on the ground, and Vergara needs to knock him down and then fall him to the ground. Then da Silva could maybe do some work, but then again, Silva could be rocked in that sense. That's the problem I have. I don't trust him to win this fight. I'm going to go with Vergara to win this fight. But da Silva is the type of fighter who can throw himself into the fight to the point where he could just come out with a win. You know what I mean? Those 3 losses, we could see a win after that. I'm kind of like I said in another fight, 70-30 on this one for Vergara on this fight. I'm going to pick him to win. Moving on to the next fight. This is an interesting one because it's hard to predict. Trevin, Giles versus Preston, Parsons. So, I honestly kind of think these guys are really evenly matched up, and that the odds do reflect that. You can see there's not too much of a huge difference in any of the statistics here, even in age, anything. Something I do want to point out, and this is probably going to be the reason. Spoiler alert: I'm picking Trevin Giles, but again, I'm not too sure about this one. Trevin Giles has fought the better competition. Okay, even his 2 losses, Dricus Duplessis and Michael Morales, those losses have aged very well, and you could say he beat. Honestly, he didn't. This is a little bit of a robbery, Roman Dolidze, so you could say he's on a 3-fight skid here, just like poor Roman Dolidze got robbed again against Marvin Vettori, but that's still a conversation for another time. He's had some good fights, okay? Preston Parsons, he beat Evan Elder, which is a really good win. I think Evan Elder's great. Daniel Rodriguez that lost in H2L. Daniel seems like he's a little bit one-dimensional, but still good fighter, okay? Don't get me wrong, but still then you go into the other fighters. Yeah, he won his fights, but still nothing too spectacular there. I think they're pretty even, maybe with pressure having a little bit of a ground advantage. This is an even fight for me. The only reason that I'm going to pick Giles is because we've seen him perform well, and again, those losses, I understand, they happened, right? But he has more experience with better competition. So if a fight's like relatively even in this sense, I am going to go with the side of experience in Giles. I think the problem will take this one. But again, certainly not a fight to bet on. Moving on to the next fight, moving on to the always exciting Steven Peterson taking on Lucas Alexander. Excuse me, my apologies. Now, Steven Peterson, his record's very choppy. If you know anything about Steven Peterson, so the guy always just throws himself into the fight. He is not a technical fighter. He has technique, but he a lot of times doesn't use it, okay? He throws himself in there and just fights. And we have not seen the guy break. That's why he's always so exciting to watch fight. Problem is, he had a really tough go in his last fight. Still didn't break, though. Julian Rosa, in my opinion, is a great fighter, though, okay? And then he's coming off of 2 wins before that where he looks real good, actually. But then had those losses against Alex Caceres and Luis Pena, excuse me. Lucas Alexander, we've seen him come to the UFC, and he looked horrible, okay? But don't get me wrong, he's a 7-3 fighter coming off a 4-fight win streak. He looked great in these fights, but then he had a hiccup, and that was a really, really big hiccup. So this is a must-win fight for him right now, the Lion. I'm going to go with Steven Peterson because I'm not too sure like how Lucas Alexander is going to do in the UFC right now. There's too many questions. Maybe he beat people that like weren't that great. Maybe his record was a little bit overdone. You get the point, but still, I think Steven Peterson's more experienced, developed, and he's comfortable in the cage. The problem is that Steven Peterson's never technical, and he relies on his toughness to win, but I think his toughness will prevail in this fight. I'm going to go with Steven Peterson to win this fight. That is my official prediction. Moving on to the next fight, Daniel Pineda versus Tucker Lutz. This one should be exciting because Daniel Pineda, we've seen him. He's very dangerous at the beginning of the fight, but then has gas tank problems. Also has a very spotty record, as you can see. I don't have to get into it. Tucker Lutz had a big problem in his last fight, again, but the problem is, that was against Pat Sabatini, and that loss has aged extremely well, especially what we've seen from Pat Sabatini recently and out of the competition as well. The guy's active everywhere, and he looks like he is the real deal. So, before that, he's looked great in his last fights. He's not like an overly exciting fighter, but at the same time, he's won. He's been dominant. The only hiccup was his most recent fight, and again, that loss has aged extremely well. I don't trust Pineda to win this fight because, again, his spotty record, you see wins-loss, wins-loss, win-loss. 37 years old and already has a gas tank that I can't trust. I'm going to go with Tucker Lutz in this one. I think I'm pretty confident in this one. I don't know if I'm going to place a bet on this one because he's a 250 favorite, and I don't know how he's going to win this one. Maybe if I had to guess, decision, because, again, he's dominant, not that exciting, but I don't know. Lutz is the pick to win. I just don't know how. Daniel Pineda, he's very dangerous at the beginning, could always do something, but then I think he's going to get taken down and controlled for the rest of this fight. I'm going with Tucker Lutz to win this fight. I think Top Gun's going to get it done. Moving on to the next fight, Chidi Njokuani versus Albert Duraev, and I apologize if I mispronounced that name. Guys, I have this at a complete 50-50. I have no clue who's going to win this fight, and that is why I am so excited for it. We've seen Duraev. He's looked good so far. Had a problem in his last fight against Joaquin Buckley. But again, you're right. It was a doctor stoppage, but still, it's tough to say how that fight was going to end. Regardless, the dude is relentless with his pressure, which is always exciting, okay? The problem is, Chidi also had an absolute banger. If you remember his last fight against Gregory Rodriguez, that fight was absolutely fantastic. And I was like, okay, maybe this dude's a real deal. But even before that, his wins have looked really good, and they've aged very well. Same with Duraev. His wins have aged very well, too. We've had, the problem is 4 years, 5 years, but then his recent 3 fights, they've aged very well, okay? Buckley, anything could happen in those fights. So, and it was stopped by a doctor. So, I don't know what to think of that one. But regardless, Chidi's takedown defense is great. Albert's takedowns is great. Chidi can bang. Albert will want to get out of the way. I don't know how this fight's going to go. This is a 50-50, and I'd love to know what you guys think in the comments down below. I am so excited for this fight because I love watching both of them fight. 50-50. I'm not making a pick for this one. But if you did have a gun in my head, I'm going to go bang-bang. But again, 50-50. Moving on to the next fight, Alex Perez versus Manel Kape. Okay, and I'm going to go with Kape, but here's the thing. I'm not 100% on it. I'm kind of like, I don't know. I don't know what the percentages I'm on for this one. I'm going to pick Starboy to win this fight, but I'll tell you why I'm not so sure. Alex Perez, You've seen him. He's been very inactive. Came back 2 years and 7 months ago. Lost both fights. Extremely inactive, okay? And he could be leaving his prime soon. He's still in his prime, but still wasted a lot of it for his career. These 2 losses, everybody else would lose to these guys in the division, okay? Davison Figueiredo and Pantoja. This dude's going to get the next title shot. I don't know if it's been officially been announced, but still, those losses have aged extremely well. He came in from his horrible long layoff and fought probably the toughest guy that you could fight outside of Figueiredo, who you just fought in a title fight. So to count Perez out, I think, is a huge mistake. But I got to go with the activity of Starboy, and he's looked good. His wins have also aged very well. Had a prom, also lost Pantoja. Okay, but again, 2 years ago, 1 year. But then in his most recent year, he's looked real good. I'm going to go with Kape, but I'm not counting Perez out at all in this fight. But I think Starboy's going to take it. I like the activity. I like that he's still young. I think he's looked good. I think he has the momentum. And Perez, he needs to win this fight. A lot of pressure on him. I'm going to go with Starboy. I think he's got this one. Moving on to the next fight, Andrea Lee versus Macy Barber. Now, a lot of guys are going to look forward to this one, but I don't know what to think, man. You never bet on women's MMA. Anything could happen. If I had to guess, I'd go with Lee. Because at least, in her losses, she's still been somewhat competitive. Macy Barber, one of these fights have been a robbery, and still, every time I watch her fight, it's the future, but I'm not overly impressed. And I don't mean to hate on her. I honestly, I kind of cheer for Macy Barber. I kind of like her. You know what I mean? But I'm not impressed by her at all. Sometimes she's looked slow. Sometimes she's just been really inactive, and sometimes she doesn't look like her mindset's really into the game. Andrea Lee, at least, when you watch her fight, she's always trying, and she's always, actively doing her best to get the win. But the problem is, Andrea Lee's not a great fighter. I don't believe she's a great fighter. You can see by her wins here, and the wins haven't aged well. The losses haven't aged well. Losing Lauren Murphy's a horrible thing, even though that's 3 years ago. Still, I don't know. I don't know who's going to win this fight. I'm not overly impressed with both women, but I'm going to go with Andrea Lee just because at least, I don't even want to say more consistent because look at her record. Macy Barber does have the youth advantage, 34. When are we going to see her slow down? I guess you could argue that we've already seen her slow down. Tough fight to pick. I'm going to go with Lee, but I don't know. And anything can happen in women's MMA. Who knows? Look at Valentina Shevchenko's last fight. I got Lee in this one. Moving on, we got Nate the Train versus Austin Lingo. This is going to be banger. I love watching Nate Landwehr fight. I'm going to cheer for him for sure in this fight. The guy is so exciting. If you guys have not seen his fight against David Onama, you got to go back and watch that one. That was so hype. One of the best fights I've seen in a long time. Well, there's been better fights, but you get the point. I was off the couch. I was screaming oh my God. It was so good. Okay. He's always fun to watch. Julian Rosa, I think, is fantastic. That loss has aged very well, but still, he's looked good. And Herbert Burns, that didn't age too well, but that's 3 years ago. I'm not saying late Landwehr. I'm not convinced that he's the best fighter, okay? He's coming off with such momentum in these 2 fights. I'm going to pick him to win. Austin Lingo, people were counting him on his last fight. I think he is also very good, okay? The thing is, my problem is, again, there's a little bit of inactivity. He just cut weight 2 weeks ago. He was supposed to fight, I think it was 2 weeks ago, either 2 or 3 weeks ago. He was supposed to fight, cut weight, made the weight, everything, was ready to fight, and then the fight got canceled. I don't like the fact that he has to cut weight again. I don't know how much he actually cuts, but that's a problem. Okay, that's a problem, and he's already fighting a guy who's going to be so relentless against him. But the problem is, Nate's also not the best fighter. He just wins with pressure, and a lot of his fights turn sloppy. You can see in his last fight. I'm going to cheer for him to win, Nate Landwehr. I have questions about Austin Lingo right now. He's coming off of a couple wins, but still, the inactivity and the momentum of Nate Landwehr, I think, is going to be too much for him. I think we're going to see more of what we've seen last time from Nate Landwehr. Maybe there will be some problems. Maybe he'll get clipped in the fight. But I think he's going to go through. I think he's going to do his best. I think he's going to end up winning either a submission or a decision. I got Nate the Train in this one. I like this matchup for him. Moving on to the next fight, we got Holly Holm versus Yana Santos. Now, if these two were dudes, I'd be all day betting on Yana Santos to win this fight. The problem is, women's MMA, anything could happen. Holly Holm, coming off of a loss. However, most people think it was a robbery, and I don't remember if I thought it was a robbery or not. Regardless, it was a kind of a close fight. Caitlin Vera, but still. Yeah, it's Holly Holm. Her whole career has been kind of spotty. You know what I mean? After that Ronda Rousey win, it's just been a little bit downhill. Yana Santos, on the other hand, coming off of a loss. That loss has aged kind of well. But still, Caitlin Vieira is a good win, and the record's been okay. But still, she's looked okay in her fight so far, and she hasn't fought anyone, of course, at the top of the division. Holly Holm is 41 years old. I don't like that. And at what point are we going to see her just completely shut down? She's looked slow and she's held people up against the fence. She's tried to use her distance to keep the distance for kickboxing. Excuse me, I think I said distance too many times there. But Yana Santos also tries to do the same thing, but has like way more activity and way more higher volume output. I think she's got this one. It's going to be a stand-up fight, but even if Yana Santos wants to take it down, she has a decent ground game. She's going to be more well-rounded. If she wants to play Holly Holm's game, I think she will be able to play Holly Holm's game because, again, there's barely a reach disadvantage there. She's going to be more active. She's barely coming out of her prime. Holly Holm's 41 years old. I don't like this fight for her. I'm going to go with Yana Santos, and if they weren't women and anything could happen, I would be betting on Santos all day, but I'm never again betting on women's MMA unless it is Weili Zhang. I got Santos in this fight. I'm confident. Moving on to the main event of the evening, Marlon Vera versus Corey Sandhagen. Man, guys, this fight, I have been looking forward to it for so long. I am such big fans of both guys, and I am most importantly, I am a huge fan of Cheeto, one of my favorite fighters to watch, okay? I'm going to be cheering for Cheeto the whole time, but I do not see a scenario where he wins this fight. I don't even think if he catches Corey Sandhagen. I don't see that as a possibility. Corey Sandhagen, okay, Marlon Vera's on an absolute roll. Looked great in all of his fights, but the problem is he's been losing his fights until he catches people, and it's not like he was losing really bad, okay? It's just that he was behind and then always catches somebody, and he just hits with such hard power. He's so much fun to watch. Corey Sandhagen coming off of a great fight, and I don't remember actually who I had winning this fight, but of course the doctor stoppage had the fight stopped in the middle of the fight. Song Yadong, fantastic. It was a great back and forth fight. Before that, Peter Yan, TJ Dillashaw, you could argue that he won both these fights. Honestly, well, I'm not Peter Yan. Close fight. But TJ Dillashaw, a lot of people thought he won that fight. Before that, Frankie Edgar, Marlon Moraes looked great. These two are the absolute top of the welterweight division. They're both great. But I just think Corey Sandhagen's going to dance around him the whole night. Cheeto, he loses the fights until he's not and then catches people. But even if, I can see Corey Sandhagen dancing around, Cheeto will catch him here and there, but I don't see Cheeto catching him. Sandhagen has that chin, man, where no matter what Cheeto does, I think if he does end up landing like a head kick or a huge power shot, I don't think it's going to really affect Sandhagen that much. I think he's just going to do his thing for 5 rounds and win a comfortable decision. Actually, a bet that I'm going to place on this fight is Corey Sandhagen, specifically by decision. I don't see either guy finishing each other, and I think Corey Sandhagen is just going to double the output, dance around. Cheeto's not going to find his shots, and even if he does, it's not going to do much against Sandhagen because he's going to catch him on the way out. He's going to be rolling off the shots, either that or he's just going to miss completely. I'm going to be cheering for Cheeto in this fight. Huge fan of him. I hope he pulls it out, but I just don't see him winning this fight at all. I think Sandhagen's going to show him that there's this level to striking that he's just not there yet. But again, I'll be in the back seat. I'll be like, come on, Cheeto, land the shot. I'll be very surprised if he knocks him out. Anything can happen, of course, it's MMA, but I'll be very surprised. I got Sandhagen in this one, and I'm very confident. And that's going to do it for this video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you are interested, I do these full card breakdowns and predictions every single week. Let me know what you thought down below. On the screen right now, I'll have 2 fantastic videos for you. One about Jon Jones, one about Francis Ngannou. You should watch them. Francis Ngannou, I have a brutally honest opinion about him. Jon Jones, we talk about who can beat Jon Jones at heavyweight. If you're interested, click on them. Thank you so much for watching, everybody.